It's time to talk Gonzaga basketball.
Get ready.
It's the Spokesman-Review Zags Insiders Podcast.
Here we go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Zags Basketball Insiders Podcast. Jim Meehan with the Spokesman-Review, semi-retired. Richard Fox, analyst on Gonzaga basketball on SWX and KHQ telecasts. Foxy, busy week. 8 days, really, for the Zags. They go 4-0 over those 8 days. Took down Pepperdine, San Diego. Those were both on the road. Then they beat at home Seattle U in overtime with a furious comeback, and Loyola Marymount last night. So 4-0 to start the conference. Zags are fourth in the net. They had dropped to 6th, but they climbed back up a couple of spots. Ken Palm has the Zags at 5th overall, 7th on offensive efficiency, 10th on defensive. AP poll hasn't been out. You haven't seen anything there, Foxy, on the AP rankings?
I'll keep my eyes out for it.
Yeah, I think they were 7th the last go around. Don't think there was a whole lot of movement above them in wins and losses, so we'll see. Still on that 2 line, according to Joe Lenardi of ESPN. 5th seed overall. 2nd seed in the West, behind Arizona. That stayed the same. Who's the number 1 seed? Michigan, who thrashed the Zags by 40 in Las Vegas. They're the top overall seed right now. Foxy, I went to the dentist this morning, and I got out of there clean. Not only my teeth, but nothing, no work to be done. Does that ever happen to you, or are you good when you? It's like taking your car and you know they're going to find something, but this time I got away.
No, that does not happen to me.
Okay.
Ever. So,
you're clean. You're a serial brusher, flosser.
whenever I go in, I've got a problem of some kind.
You do have the problem. Okay. Well, I can relate. Zags went to the dental office against Seattle U, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let's start. We talked about Pepperdine in last week's show because it was Sunday, and we had a show last Monday. But these other 3 games, let's go through them. Let's lead off with San Diego, and that was another interesting. Zags were interesting this week. You can't say they were boring in these last 3 games. That was the Jalen Worley game. Off the bench, the Virginia transfer, 22 points, 14 boards, 5 assists, 3 steals. He did it all. The bench was the difference maker in that game, like they were last night against LMU. Tyon Grant Foster, 18 points. Mario Sansepari, he had a rough first half. He threw up 2 or 3 shots on drives that just looked forced and didn't come close. But then second half, he was really good. Finished with 14. Ike and Huff were not their usual 33 or 4 points a game, but still made an impact. We'll get to Ike in a second here. But first, that bench led by Worley. Why was he so good in this one? And we'll get to the meltdown at the end of the game that made it fairly tight. But why was Worley so effective against the Toreros?
Well, I think he's generally a matchup problem because he's a non-shooter. I think a lot of teams look at him, when they're scouting the Gonzaga defensively, it's logical to think, well, we can put a big on him.
Yeah.
We don't have to go out there and guard him the same way we would if you put him on, Venters or someone like that. But when that happens, he's really just crafty about finding gaps, kind of sliding into open areas. And the thing about it is he's relentless. Every time a shot goes up, he goes to the offensive glass without question.
Yeah.
Unless he's, out way beyond the 3-point line towards the top of the key. If he's anywhere else other than that, the shot goes up, he's going to the front of the rim. And I think that could present a challenge, whether it be a big guard him or even a guard, particularly if it's another wing, because you don't even though you get drilled on it constantly, if you're a good program, you drill your guys, look, turn and find a body. It's still not. It's not the same instinct that a big's going to have for a perimeter player. And so I
Yeah.
think he takes advantage of guys who lose track of him. He's a good athlete. He's pretty vertical, so he can go up to the apex and go get it. Um, and he's stronger than he looks. I mean, he's a big kid, and he plays physical. So I just don't think USD they just didn't have a good matchup for him. I thought maybe Moore or Lane would be that matchup. Those guys come off the bench, but really, both those guys had moments in the game, but from just blocking him out, they just couldn't do that. And Ike and Huff draw so much attention, as does Grant Foster, that sometimes he's kind of the odd guy out where he's got an open run to the rim.
Yeah.
And I really liked it. Obviously, his rebounding was tremendous, but and he got a lot of easy putbacks. But he's starting to knock. We saw this against LMU. He's starting to knock down those little floaters. 5, 6, 7 feet from the basket. His field goal percentage is improving. And he just does so much for him defensively that leads to easy points in transition, either for himself or somebody else.
Yeah.
Look, I think you and I both been really, really impressed with him from the beginning. I think I've confessed on this podcast before. I didn't really know a lot about him coming in. It wasn't like I went back and scouted Florida State to understand how Jalen Warley played. I needed to see him. And from the moment he's played in these games, he's been a difference maker. You have to play 35 minutes.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy that just has to be on the floor during winning time or critical moments. And it's just really I think it's a testament to him, but it's also a really interesting case study for guys like him that can't shoot the ball.
Yeah.
How can I have an impact? I said this on the call last night. I mean, they don't call a single play for the kid. And, I think he had 12 last night or something to that effect. But been a really nice piece for them. Fits into what they want to do. And he defensively is a problem. I mean, he is so good laterally, long arms, comes up, just deflects the ball. And you can tell guys, it's a lot like LMU last night attacked him like you would a shot blocker. They were tentative attacking him, and when they would try to attack him with the dribble drive, they'd hesitate to shoot it. Yeah. It was really remarkable to see.
Well, yeah, he's got to be a candidate for the Defensive Player of the Year in the conference. Just does so many different things. A little bit of an Anton Watson feel there with how versatile he is, and I think Greg McDermott at Creighton's coach described him best. He could just call him a winner. He just does what you need to win, and may not be traditional, scoring 20 a game, but I think he went from 22 in that game to 0 the next game against CLU, but still made an impact in that game. So anyway, let's move on. We'll talk about those last 6-7 minutes that did not go so smoothly, and then we'll get to Ike and his technical and kind of the fallout from that. But first, the Zags, it was about what I expected. The Zags were scoring it pretty easily. They were leading by 21, maybe 7-8 minutes left, something like that.
Yes.
And then, they hit a wall. They started turning it over. The press bothered them. I think the defense took a pretty long snooze there. If I did my research right, the Toreros had something like 31 points in the last 7 minutes, maybe something like that. That's incredible. And it just turned into, I know there was a lot of sky is falling out there on Twitter, but I never got the feeling they were going to lose the game, but it got way closer than it needed to be. You're courtside for that game. What did those last 6-7 minutes look like to you, and how worried was the bench while that was kind of getting tighter than they wanted?
Yeah, we had interesting seats. We were on the baseline side on the Gonzaga's side, end of the floor by their bench. So that was kind of a fun place to sit and watch the game.
Did you have the band there? I usually get the band in my ear.
I did not have the band, no.
Oh.
In fact, I don't even know if there was a band there that night.
No,
Um,
well, students are gone, so you probably got
yeah.
away. Your ears are good then.
Um,
Yeah.
it's funny, man. I just don't. It's not like I can point to something. I mean, obviously they really struggled with the full court pressure that San Diego was putting on them. A lot of these turnovers were just unforced, careless. I mean, at one point, Smith and Mario almost ran into each other. It just felt like they didn't know what the plan was. Um, and you couple that with the fact that they missed a bunch of free throws. I think they were 1 of 7 down the
Yeah.
stretch. Um, and I'm trying to think that the Goodwin came in and knocked down 3 of 5 threes in the game, but hit a couple during that run. I mean, I don't have, I can't remember the stats now, but
Yeah.
effectively had been a non-shooter coming into that game. Had maybe knocked down 6 or 7, the freshman, and he gets on a bit of a heater on his own. And that's what you need. I mean, you need guys, the unexpected guys, to provide you with some production offensively. I thought Johnson was a problem. It wasn't like he was 21 points on inefficient shooting. He was 9 of 12.
He's a nice player.
He is, I believe, from Wake Forest. It felt. I don't think we can talk about the run without talking about Ike. So
Yeah.
the Ike from the very beginning got frustrated. I'm going to mispronounce his name. I knew it for a night. Boscovich, I believe it is.
I think that's right.
Not nearly the player that Graham is. Smaller, strong-bodied kid. Just was like a gnat, just constantly leaning on Graham. They was face guarding him in the post, which is really atypical.
Yeah.
And it really got under Graham's skin. He was talking to Graham, not overtly, but you could tell he was chit chatting with him, trying to just engage him. And Gonzaga's up 11 at half, 21. When Graham got that technical foul, though, the feeling, the mood changed. The mood changed on the bench. I mean, I watched this happen in real time. I mean, Mark's staring at Graham in disbelief, but kind of when you're so pissed at your kid that you can't find the words, or the words in your mind are things you shouldn't say out loud. And then the look that Graham gave Mark was really interesting, and it reminded me, like, if my wife and I are in a bad way at home, pissed about something, or whatever it is, naturally the dynamic in the house is tenser, right? It just is.
Kids pick up on it.
Kids pick up on it. The spouse picks up on it, and depending on who's pissed off, you've got different remedies, and mom, a big squeeze of mom, a big hug, and usually it's fine. With dad, let's give him a couple of hours. Let's give him a wide berth. But it felt like dad was mad with Graham, and the whole dynamic of the team changed.
Yeah.
It was tenser. And look, that carried over to Seattle U in that first half too. So I just think it was a disjointed effort. They just didn't feel connected. It didn't, this is a team. I think a criticism, or not a characteristic of the teams the last couple of years that I've noticed, particularly a couple of years ago, was that it didn't feel like a group that played with a lot of joy. I have not felt that way about this group until the second half of San Diego, where it all of a sudden felt like, hold on now.
Yeah.
We're not having any fun right now. This is work. And they played that way. And I mean, a lot of it goes to San Diego. I thought did a really good job. We saw this against Seattle U as well. I mean, this is a league with by and large very good coaches, teams that are able to do a lot of different things. Maybe don't have the personnel to play with GU, but from a scouting and schematic game plan perspective, these teams are pretty dynamic.
Yeah.
And San Diego did a really good job. They man-to-man, multiple types of zone, full court pressure, 3-court pressure. So they just changed how they did things. They changed how they doubled in the post. So that forces you to think a bit. And I just think when that dynamic changed after the technical foul, it kind of rippled through the whole group. And then I think it carried over to the floor where people played tighter. It just didn't seem as loose. And then they just made a lot of careless mistakes. I mean, Emmanuel was really bad down the stretch of that game. Mario hit some threes, but missed some bunnies in transition. Smith had 3 turnovers, which for
Never
him is like
does.
yeah. I mean, that's a huge number. Um, Look, they don't win that game without Grant Foster and Worley coming in and doing what they did. I mean, Worley obviously was tremendous, but Grant Foster was also quite good.
Yeah.
And that's the value of the depth that they have, right? If you're playing 7, I think you lose that game.
Yeah. Grant Foster had a great 8 days. He's playing very well.
He's figured it out.
Yeah. Ike, and we've talked about this. I remember saying this, that I was very impressed with his maturity, his approach, his ability to play with fire and not go over the line like we saw last year, 2 or 3 times last year. I don't know how many technicals he ended up with, but he had quite a few. And I know he's got, I think, 2 now and maybe a flagrant or 2 already this year, but kind of thought he was past that. And that to me looked like a year ago when somebody could get him going, get him riled up, and he would respond in a negative way. And so his response was pretty good in the long run, the last bit here. They did bench him against Seattle U. I think he came in at just over 2 minutes in. He came in, but just thought he took a step back, and it'll be interesting to see if that becomes something that reoccurs in the next couple games or 3 games, because teams are going to do it. They're going to try to goad him. They're going to try to bait him. Once you've gotten that technical from last year and this year, and people see it on film, that's what they're going to try to do. So we'll see how he handled it. It's going to be interesting, but I still think he's matured. I still think they need that edge that he brings. You just don't need him to go over that line.
Watching the Seattle game a couple nights later and then watching him last night, I think you have to live with it. He has gotten better. Certainly, I think there's less of it, but when he feeds off of that edge, and he feeds off of barking at officials, barking at the other team, sometimes barking at guys on his own bench.
Yeah.
That's part of, I think, you have to respect how athletes, people stay engaged in what they're doing. And I think you have to live with it. I mean, it's a bit unfortunate he slams the water, but he's fine. He's talking to the official, in language that I would not have done. But I think the officials are going to let that go. And then he slams a water bottle, and of course the cap flies off and the water gets on the court. That's an automatic tee, right? So there's a little bit of bad luck with that. But I just think I think you have to live with it. I think he's done a very good job of channeling that intensity. And you're right, we haven't seen as many. Certainly haven't seen as many of the tentacles or just ill-advised silly fouls, whatever it might be. But you have to live with it, in my opinion. I mean, that's a big part of what makes him who he is.
Yeah, it's his ignition switch is what it is. It gets him going. Well, let's move on to the dental office, otherwise known as the Seattle U game, for about 30-plus minutes. Zags were in deep trouble in this game, and the offense hasn't looked like that since Michigan. But that was arguably the best team in the country. And they shut down the Zags with that size and just their versatility, their entire roster, both ends of the floor. But Seattle U's size did bother Gonzaga's bigs, I thought. And, I thought the Zags guarded fine, but they got worked over on the offensive glass. I think they were down 8-1 in second chance points. And I do have a visitor here. I'm dog sitting, Foxy. So I've got Sophie girl. A very friendly lab.
That's perfect.
I've got a pet through this segment. So they, they couldn't keep them off the offensive glass. It was 8-1 second chance points for the Red Hawks, who led by 8 at the break, coincidentally. But they're double teams. They were very effective when they doubled Gonzaga's bigs. the kick out passes weren't there. Mark Few kind of suggested that wasn't on the bigs as much as the guys who were supposed to spot up or move to get to an open area for those kick out passes. So that was kind of a combination of things that they didn't execute the way they wanted. This was the weirdest game in that the Zags had 3 players score in the first half total. And then until Braden Smith scored, he was the 4th. He had a bucket with about 16 minutes left. They had 5 guys score in the game, and Adam Miller had 2 points. So I think that group scored something like 71 of the 80 points. So they didn't have options going that game. Offensive issues. We'll get to the comeback here in the next question, but the offensive issues, Foxy, what bogged down? Why were they so effective getting after the post and then recover? They could recover in a hurry too. They were smart. How they didn't go crazy and jump over the shooter and give up a 3. They were pretty good with the rotations. But what were the offensive issues you noticed in those first 25, 30 minutes?
Well, what stood out to me, let's talk about Seattle U first. What stood out to me was that is a very, very well-coached team. They came in, it's helpful the students aren't there to be sure, but they came in, that was a group that had no fear, was not in awe of playing Gonzaga for the first time since like 1980. It was, number 7 team in the country. They played 10 guys in a rotation, so they've got depth. So when players are in, they're playing hard. Their scheme was really pretty elaborate. I mean, they would double the post almost the entirety of the game, but they had some stretches where they didn't. But they would send the double from different places, but notably, they would send the double from the baseline side. So let's imagine that you're posting up on the right block, my back to the basket, so the right block. I, as a primary defender, I don't want to give you the middle. I want to force you to spin to the baseline, but that's where the double's coming. So what they were trying to have happen is they would want Ike or Huff to spin into that secondary defender as they're coming over. Either get the ball stripped or now they're in trouble.
Yeah.
I thought Ike, or rather Huff in particular, would give it up too soon. They also would bluff the double. So you might have Ike or Huff on that same right block, and you might have Maldonado on the wing, and he would look as if he was going to dive down. Braden would pick it up, and then he would go right back out to a shooter. So now Braden doesn't have a dribble.
Yeah.
So they that's just a few examples. They did a really nice job of that. They changed up what they were doing. They pressed some zone. They've got some size inside. Dan was very good. The kid out of China, 7 points, 8 rebounds, but more importantly, just kind of held up physically. They hardly ever left their feet. Yeah. One time, Maldonado left his feet, and Smith got if not an and one, he got to the free throw line for 2. That was late in the game. That was really the one time that I saw one of their players, the primary defender, leave their feet.
Yeah.
Hembrot is a very good player. I mean, he was terrible from the field, 4 of 19, which is something you don't see very often. But he's one of the better defenders in the league. I mean, he's a good athlete. There's a lot of Worley in him as far as when he's on the ball, he just pokes at it. And then I think the hangover from San Diego for Gonzaga just carried over in that first half. Again, it felt like a team that just was not enjoying the experience of being out there. They felt disjointed. They just couldn't get going. It was just really difficult to watch. I think you felt like they could turn the switch, but they needed somebody to be the one to do it, and they needed it to be Graham, and you found that in the second half. And Graham got going, 15 points in the second half, and in overtime, I think he had 24 for the game. He comes off the bench, which I didn't. I mean, I understand what the point that's probably trying to be made there, but he came in with 2.5 minutes off the clock. It's like when I'm exhausted and my children piss me off, and I tell them, no more iPad, and then I realize I'm exhausted 2 minutes later, and actually don't want to deal with them. And so I'm like, all right, if you find 5 more minutes on the fire, I mean, it doesn't like my children learn nothing there other than, dad's exhausted. So, um, yeah, that was as much as Gonzaga's had to sweat in a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
it was pretty interesting. And I'm trying to look at the first half stats. I mean, you basically Huff and Foster 20 points and Ike with the 9, 29 points from 3 guys, and that theme kind of carried over, but you just don't see that very often.
Well, not with this team, with their depth and their balance a lot of times. I mean, I know Ike and Huff kind of lead the show, but they have a lot of guys in the 4, 6, 9 point range or whatever it is. But that comeback, the Zags really, no students obviously on holiday break, and so it was quiet in the kennel. And the way the game was going, it was even quieter. But they finally gave the fans something to cheer about when they started this comeback, and it kind of turned into one of those furious, frantic comebacks, and the crowd really helped those closing minutes. It was loud in there, and but what really helped is EK started to take over. TGF was very good in that game all the way through. They hit their free throws, if I recall, too, which had been a problem against San Diego.
7 of 9 in the second half.
Well, and I think as I mentioned this to somebody last night, when you get to the end of the year and if things go the way you're thinking they might go for the Zags, especially in conference, Braden Smith hitting those 2 that tied it up, I don't know how much, 30 seconds or 20 seconds, something like that. Those are big and got them to overtime when they got the defensive stop. Grant Foster's defense swatting a bunch of shots again, and he got Maldonado on that last play that they ran for him, the guard from Seattle U. He blocked a 3 from the corner. Those were huge plays, and it was a situation where they had to have all those things. But I think their defense kept them alive for a lot of that game, especially when they shut down the offensive rebounding in the second half. Kind of gave them a chance to make that comeback when the offense got going. Did you see that comeback coming, Foxy, or were you kind of thinking loss number 1 right here in the WCC?
Yeah, I legitimately.
And they didn't show much sign of it.
Yeah, I'm reminded of the Santa Clara game when they hit 18 threes last year, the year before. That one was just like, I mean, Gonzaga still almost found a way to win that game, but because of the way Santa Clara was scoring it just felt like I don't think they're going to get it tonight.
Yeah.
Seattle struggles to score enough, and Gonzaga is good enough defensively where it felt like it was going to go down to the wire. Look, yeah. Gonzaga's 14 of 17 from the free throw line in the second half and overtime combined, right? That's where you win those tight games in a large part based on can you make those shots, and they did. Season high 9 blocks, Grant Foster with 5 of those. I mean, he's been tremendous in league play. It's not all that surprising. I mean, it feels like he's tailor-made to dominate this conference, just with his physical tools and his athleticism and his ability to get to the basket, all those types of things. They started just having a little bit more. They just play with more energy, more urgency. Ike in particular started getting just some one-on-one coverage. He was quicker with his decisions. I felt like Seattle got a little tired. The rotations were a little late. And he just missed some shots. I mean, you have to remember, too, I mean, sometimes these games, it's simplifying, and I'm not trying to take away from anybody, but, I mean, some of the shots Seattle you hit, I mean, I'm thinking of June's 2 threes, one in the corner, the ball bounces around like in a ping pong game, off of 2 players, his teammate, and I think Venter's back, and he knocks down a corner 3, and then, late clock, he's got the one over Ike.
30 feet, probably.
Yeah, I mean, you have to make some of those shots in order to have a chance to win these games on the road. So, I give Seattle U a lot of credit. I thought in the second half, Ike was back to who he is. He was physical, he was vocal. He just imposed himself, and Huff's been the one constant, man. I mean, all year, right? I mean, he's the one guy. There's no variance to his approach, no variance to the speed in which he plays. Um, and that's a real luxury to have a guy where, I mean, he's got 28 points in the first half. He had 13, 5 of 6, played 17 minutes. He's been the steadying force here this week, and really all year. I mean, I think going into last night, in 12 games, he's averaging over 20 a game, shooting some ridiculous percentage, around 70% from the field, right? I mean, but it's interesting. I mean, you had talked earlier about the scoring. We can get into this, but it's the first time in at least 10 years that they've only had 3 guys at double digits. However, it's the second highest points per game that they've averaged in that run.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, right?
It is an interesting team, I'm telling you.
Yeah. And the other thing too, you mentioned it, and I made note of it in my mind. The rebounding, they get out rebounded by 1. Second time this year, they lost the rebound margin by 6 to Michigan, and that's a bad rebounding team in Seattle. Coming into the game, they were almost -4, 13.5 in league play. I think just about on par for the season. And in the first half, I'm looking at it now. First half rebounds were, Seattle's +5.
Yeah.
I thought Seattle, you did a great job, but that's when you're watching games like this, any game, any team you like plays, start with the rebounding, because that's the one area where skill doesn't matter. I mean, you have to be disciplined to go box out. You have to rotate properly defensively. So if a little has to box out a big, but ultimately rebound is all about toughness, and it's the one place in basketball where cliches are applicable. Yeah. Do you want the ball more than the guy who's bumping you next, on your right side? I mean, go get the ball. And that was really startling in the first half in particular. Was Gonzaga just was slow to the ball, rebounding it, right? And I thought a lot of 50-50 plays, Seattle, you would come up with it. And I'm going to just go back to what I said about Ike. Second half, for whatever reason, he felt like himself. He looked like himself. He played like himself. He was starting to chirp at the officials again. He carries himself differently when he's into it.
Yeah.
Right? His chest is up a little bit or out. There's a little swag to his walk in between plays. He's demonstrative. He was so subdued in the second half against San Diego, in the first half against Seattle. That was not the case in the second half, and certainly not the case last night.
He's way more decisive. That's what I like. His moves are just, boom, I'm doing this. When he's kind of eases into a game, and you've seen this, he'll miss his first 3 shots or 5 shots. It's more, I'll probe a little and try this or that. But when he gets in that mood and he's living on the edge, it's like, I'm catching the ball, I'm getting to my spot, and I'm scoring on you. And you're not going to be able to do anything. And that's kind of what he did. Let's get on to Loyola Marymount last night. Symbolic of GU's up and down week. They did it all in one half in that one. They were sleepy in the first half, or first part of the first half. They got down 14-4. Nothing was happening offensively. LMU really wasn't great, I didn't think. I thought defensively they were fine, but offensively they had 12 points in the paint, but nothing sensational. They just were, Gonzaga couldn't keep up there for a minute. So then it flips completely. Gonzaga's defense tightens down. The offense didn't go crazy, but it was 14-4. It ends up 33-19 at half. Loyola scores 5 points in the last 13 and a half minutes or so. Had a 9-minute, close to it, 9-minute drought. Didn't score. I think they had another 4-minute one before the end of the half. Totally changed. From there on, it was all GU. What flipped what flipped that around, Foxy? It started out a little bit like Seattle U and ended up like Texas Southern. What flipped for the Zags to get that thing turned around?
Defense. You
Yeah.
know, puts Vogel in the starting lineup for Emmanuel.
Yep.
Emmanuel fighting a bug of some sort that's been going through the team. Ends up playing, Emmanuel does, a bit here in the game last night, but he puts in Miller, Worley, and Grant Foster, and Mario, and it changes the game entirely.
Yeah.
That group was, and I believe Ike was out there with them.
He was initially. He was. Yeah.
Yeah. They just shut things off for LMU. It was really jarring to see. LMU's offense was starting 7-8 feet from the 3-point line, catching it that far away. They would try to drive. So much of what you're trying to do on offense, right, is create an advantage either with your movement and the ball moving, through your offense, or with dribble penetration, right, where I can get by you, or at least generate an advantage, and that's going to force some rotation, some help. And now, if we're a good team, we kick it out, and the ball starts swinging, and the defense falls behind, and we get a good shot. Yeah. LMU couldn't get past their primary defender. All four of those kids were dialed in, and then you throw in. LMU does a lot of screening action between their wings, and Gonzaga's just like, okay, we'll just switch.
Yeah.
So that screening action, it's not creating any advantage. And Mario and Miller are stout, tall enough. Mario's, call it 6'4", 6'3", 6'4". Miller's about 6'2". But Miller looks like he could go play Division I football, and Mario's a pretty strong kid himself, so they could play up a position. In other words, if you want to define Mario as a 1-2, he can guard a 3. If you want to say Miller's a 2, he can guard a 3. So bigger guys aren't a problem for them. They've got enough strength where they can keep them in front. And this LMU had nowhere to go. It was really as good as I've seen them defensively in a long time.
Yeah.
And as a result, those guys got an extended run. Grant Foster picked up a second foul, so they put in I think Emmanuel. Miller came out. The rotation, but it was a good 8 to 9, maybe 10 minutes of game time where that group, those four, stayed in the game, and they blew it wide open. So it's the best I've seen them defensively in a long time. I thought it was a really good read in game from the staff to say these guys are putting in work on this end. This is you never know when you're going to win a game. Right? Seattle U, it's down the stretch. LMU, they won that game between the 5 and 9 minute mark in the first half.
Yeah.
It was lights out, over. LMU, you build a lead. LMU's getting frustrated. You figured out that you can shut them off. That's where the game was won.
Yeah. And
the rest of it's just semantics. And they continued to guard them at that level. Emmanuel was good when he came in. Venters, competes defensively. I was really impressed with it. It was good to see. They really imposed themselves on that end on Gonzaga. And then I think on the offensive side, guys started making shots. It was a good night for Mario. Grant Foster continues to be who he is. Worley was also good. Ike and Huff. It's who you expect.
Yeah, it's what makes them a fascinating team with what they can do maybe later in the tournament. They can beat you, with defense. And suffocating defense. They were in the passing lanes. They all of them afterwards talked about guarding your yard. You hear that around Gonzaga a lot. You got to control the guy you're guarding. If he's breaking you down every play, the whole thing goes kaflooey, and you're giving up layups or kickouts, whatever. They did that. And all of them, Miller, Mario, Braden, TGF, Worley, all of them on the perimeter did that. Fogel had a nice defensive play when he was in at the start, guarding guys. So and sometimes they can just go out and score 95 on you, and you're not going to be able to stop them. They might beat you 90. Might beat Alabama 95-85, or
Mm-hmm.
they have different ways they can beat you. But they talked about kills in the post game. That's 3 straight stops defensively.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked Worley about it, and he said, I asked him if the staff told him how many did you get in that game, because when you have those dry spells, that's
Yeah,
kill
man
on
up.
top of kill on top of kill. He says, oh, they didn't say anything about it, but they do mention it when we don't get any kills, which is kind of funny. But Miller's a delight in the post-game interview. He is
Yeah.
a very insightful kid. And you mentioned Huff being steady as she goes this year. That kid's the same way. He starts, he plays 8 minutes, he plays 18 minutes, he comes off the bench, plays 20 minutes. He is almost always the same. You know what you're getting out of him. But he was sitting next to those guys, and he said, I think they said we had 13 stops in a row at one point, and then another part where they had 9. I mean, that's all kinds of kills when you add it up. So they were
Well,
terrific. I mean, they were just that. They look. Loyola missed some shots. The big kid missed 1 or 2 inside that were pretty good shots. They missed some threes, but a lot of those were not good-looking threes. A lot of them were mid-range, tough, contested. That's as good as I thought they've looked defensively in a while. And that's the side of the ball, to me, I worry about more offensively than with the Zags. Is if that's on, they are going to be difficult to beat, because offensively it's going to come, or it's going to happen. You have to believe, for the most part, in all these games, even against good competition. But if that defense does that, that's a different ballgame.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad you brought up Miller, because I thought he was tremendous against Seattle. Who didn't score.
That charging call he drew was
But
big.
he saved at least 1, if not 2 balls going out of bounds. Got
Yeah,
Gonzaga another possession. He moved the ball. I think he only get credit for 1 assist, but let me see. I don't need to guess. No assists, but he had a couple great feeds into the post. I mean, and defensively, it's the best I've seen him look. I think he's been solid all year on that end. He doesn't necessarily jump out at you in the same way some of these others do, but he's been Seattle U and then LMU. He was really good, and he made some shots. What, 3 of
3 threes.
5?
Yeah.
3 of 5, and that's the thing nowadays. But particularly for this group, is with the depth that they have, some nights are your nights and some nights aren't others. And Worley said this in our post game, and I'll remember it here in a moment. Something to the effect of, it might be my night, it may not be my night, but it's always our night. Something like that.
Yeah.
Which I thought was
It's
a
true.
really clever way of describing it. It's like, not about me, it's about us. And Worley's clearly got that approach. I mean, you need that if you're going to have a role at all when this is all said and done. You've got to be okay with those nights where you have it going, or you don't get extended run. I mean, he scored 3 points in the first 3 games of league play.
Yeah.
But he helped them win on Friday night. Like, he was critical. Yeah. And so, but yeah, to your point about defense, look, this is, to me, we've been saying this since the beginning of the year. This is the area and the side of the ball where I think that where A, they could be elite, and B, that's going to carry them to where they want to go.
Yeah.
It's remarkable in a way because they don't have a traditional shot blocker. I know Grant Foster has been on a tear lately, but he's a wing. When you think of shot blocking, you're thinking of a guy at the rim, last line of defense, that kind of thing. But they have everybody on the floor can defend. Huff is good now in the pick and roll situations. He's stout enough on the low block. If Gonzaga plays against bigs that have a little bit of game with their back to the basket, obviously Graham's just a man inside. And then you couple that with the fact that they rebound at a high level, Seattle U notwithstanding. You know that you're going to be difficult to score on, and you can clean up the defensive glass and limit second chance opportunities. And now we go to the other end and we play.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you said you got concerns about the offensive end. I do too, but it's crazy because they're averaging 91.6 points per game. And so I feel like I sound like an idiot in a way, but that is the area of concern. They're so dependent on Ike and Huff, and Grant Foster just finds a way to get his. And they don't have a guard that is explosive and going to go get theirs. And I mean, I don't know what the season high is, but I'm not expecting Mario or Smith to go get 22. And they're going to have games, I think, where teams are going to find a way to really make it hard around the basket.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the question, right, that you think we have for them offensively is, well, then what happens? Where's the offense come from? And I think for them, it's three-point shooting because the ball will be coming out. Can they make those shots? But yeah, I'm really impressed. It's the best, like I said, the best I've seen them look defensively in a long, long time.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that this is a start of a stretch for them where we see that consistently. If they guard like that, I think I'm feeling more comfortable with my undefeated rest of the way prediction. We did this podcast Saturday morning. I might have waffled, but I'm not going to do that now. I've got 100% confidence, no doubt.
Yeah, I probably went the other way. I was joining you, I mentioned last week, and now I'm back into the 50-50 range. They threw a few alarm bells at me, but they got it done with 4 straight conference wins, and that leads us into the next game. It's a 1-game week. Santa Clara coming to town, 4-0, doing what Herb Sendek teams do. They score it at a pretty good clip, pretty efficient offensively. Got a couple of kids, Christian Hammond and Mahi, I think, is the 6'8" wing was there last year. He has really stepped up his game. Hammond and him are kind of their Huff and Ike. They're about 33 a game combined. Really good behind the three-point line, both of them. And then they just sort of find scores beyond that, like the Zags do. It might be a different guy each night that step up. You look at their assist totals. I didn't write it down, but it seemed like everybody's within 15 or 20 of each other. Nobody's, way up high with the number, but it's kind of by committee. They share it. They shoot it. Not a huge inside presence offensively, but kind of like a lot of these teams they're seeing. There's a stable of bigs, and they might find 6 or 8 or 10 out of one guy and 5 or 6 out of another. They are more defensive guys, foul guys, rebound guys. But this is a team that can score it. The Zags saw it up close last year when I think they put 100 on the Zags in the building. Very much a Santa Clara team and very much going to challenge Gonzaga's defense, maybe in a way that they haven't seen in conference yet, with the ability to throw up 80 or 90 in a hurry on you. What do you make of that matchup? Gonzaga trying to deal with what Santa Clara brings on offense.
They're a good rebounding team. I'm looking at just league numbers, almost 10 plus 10. They have make about 12 threes a game and shoot 38% from the 3-point line. So they can stretch you out. Overall, the field goal percentage about 54%. They're very good offensively, scoring almost 94 a game in league. They have a better scoring differential than even Gonzaga in league play at 23 points per game. So look, Sendek's a very good coach. They play a free style. They've got skill all over the floor. A lot like Gonzaga, they've got real depth. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys playing at least 17, or actually 8 guys playing 17 and a half minutes or better, and then Cochran comes in and plays about 12. Yeah. Only 2 guys in double digits, but they've got a number of guys who can score off their bench. Kind of go a lot like Gonzaga. You've got your 2 staples in Huff and Ike, and you can throw Grant Foster in there if you like, but you never know night to night. They've had success up here. I don't think this group's going to come up here and be worried about who they're playing. I think it'll be an interesting game. If Gonzaga guards the way they guarded last night, Jim, I don't think it matters, man. That's the depth of my analysis. If they guard the way they guarded LMU, you can apply that to anybody in the country. They've got high major athletes, high major size. So this isn't a situation where Gonzaga is the best of the rest, and now they go play Arizona or Duke, and they don't have the athletes, right? I mean, that was what you dealt with in my era. This is all of the guys that play for them could play for those other teams too.
Yeah.
They're athletically capable of doing that. So if they guard the way that they guarded, I think it's just going to be a tall order for Santa Clara, particularly up here. But it's a very well coached team. They will throw a lot of different things at Gonzaga.
Yeah.
I thought Seattle U was very committed to trying to slow Ike and Huff down. They didn't have a lot of success ultimately, but what they did do, I thought their plan threw everybody else off for a period of time. I'll be very interested to see what Santa Clara's wrinkle is against GU. And then look, they like to play fast. They're not afraid of a high possession game, so it'll be interesting.
All these teams you mentioned, they're not scared. A lot of that is they've got older guys. All these teams, even the teams in the bottom half, have 4th, 5th-year seniors that have played in big arenas against great opponents. They're not going to come in with 100 games under the belt at the college level and just walk in fear of Gonzaga or anybody. They're just going to go in and throw their best shot. But you're seeing teams, San Diego mixed it up. You're seeing almost every team throw zone at the Zags for a stretch. I thought I saw LMU do a couple.
They did.
I think they did the 1-3-1 and trapped for a stretch.
And 2-3 as well.
Yeah, and then they're changing up how they guard the post. They're throwing all the wrinkles that the Zags are going to get with that offense. And then at the other end, you're seeing them do what teams have done in the past against Zags. San Diego did it. There were really no post presence, so it was 5 out, and they're going to get this defender out on the wing and isolate him and try to take him off the bounce and break you down. Same thing LMU was trying to do last night. And they got guys who are pretty good at that. Vide is good, and Rodney Brown. Amy's been really good this year, and they just shut those guys down.
Amy and Brown, the top 2 3-point shooters, at least based on percentage and threes made, those combined make 6 a game.
Yeah. You're just going to see teams try to beat them with the 3 ball. You're going to try to see them beat them off the bounce. Only a few teams will try to beat them throwing it into the post and working out of that. St. Mary's will be one of those. But so you're seeing all the different things that they've seen over the years. That's what makes conference play fascinating. They know you so much. You know them so much. When you play St. Mary's, it's like they could call out each other's plays. But we'll hit one topic here before we leave. Update, Sophie is still here being petted. When you pet Sophie, she's with you for life. You do not stop her. She's going to start growling at you. So
hold on. Before we hit that, let me tell you where the AP poll just came out. We are Gonzaga is what the hell?
They were 7th. Did they stay there?
Houston jumped Gonzaga.
So they're 8th?
Yeah, they're 8, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, all right. So now we know. And let's do one quick topic here. And it's another interesting thing about this team. All those years where everybody complained that Mark Few didn't go beyond 7 in the rotation, maybe 7.5. All the years where he wouldn't mix up starters, it was always the same starting 5, maybe 1 or 2 changes a year unless somebody got hurt. Man, it is a roulette wheel with these guys when they come into a game, starting a game. Now, Fogel starts. That surprised me. I really thought it might be TGF. But he started. He's the 10th different Zag to start this year. I have to believe that's some kind of record. I don't know how many different starting lineups. The last 4 games, they've had 4 different starting lineups. Last night, they go with TGF and Miller in the second half to start. Fogel and Benners come out. Things you just haven't seen very often with Mark's teams. They usually settle into a rotation and roles are identified. This team has the depth where that is not the case. It's going to be, as you mentioned, a different guy every night off that bench. Other than Huff and EK, every one of those next 8 guys is fighting for a spot on a given night, and how they're playing is going to determine that. Can you recall anything similar to how different the approach is this year, how they're using that bench, and how, I guess, Mark is it's, you're the hot hand tonight. Come on out. Worley, you're playing 35. Next night it might be Miller. Miller didn't score in the first half yesterday. He did have a couple of terrific defensive plays. He started the second. So that just tells you he saw something that worked and he wanted to see more of. What do you make of all the in and out to the starting lineup and the rotation?
Yeah, I've never seen it before from Mark. I don't think it's all that common, period, in basketball. It's something that you see in Europe more frequently, but even in the NBA, you kind of settle in on your group unless there's an injury or illness. I mean, you've got your rotations dialed in. Look, you can only do it if you have a lot of really good players. So as a result, you've got real depth. B, those players and the way they play allow for a lot of mixing and matching. In other words, you can
versatility.
There's versatility in that Mario can play with Smith and now play off the ball.
Yeah.
Miller can play a couple different spots and maybe even bring up the ball a little bit. That type of thing. I mean, EK and Huff, their versatility is they can play together, but other than those two, you've got everybody is comfortable anywhere on the floor. So you've got depth, versatility in your roster construction, and then you have to have people meaning players who buy into this idea. It's not easy as a player to not understand on a night-to-night basis what A, my role is, and B, how much I should generally expect to play, and then C, when I'm going to play in that game. One of the best things I experienced as a player was when I was overseas. I played for a guy who it was effectively scripted. We had a rotation. I knew I'd come in last 2.5 minutes, more or less, first quarter, play through the first 5.5 to 6.5 minutes of the second quarter. Then I'd have a run in the third, and then I probably, depending on the game, would play or not play in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
I'm able to mentally prepare myself for what it is I'm going to need to do. And I don't need to be ready to go right when the game starts. I mean, you are, but in other words, I understood, okay, I'm going to keep kind of warming up on the bench. I'm going to stay loose, blah, blah, blah. So that's just a very specific example, but their rotations are not consistent. I mean, yes, they've got this four guys coming in the first substitution of the game. We've seen that now for a while. But at that point, doesn't feel like there's a distinct pattern to it. I think they have an idea and they have a desire, but they have the ability to read what's happening in the game, who's playing well, who's good for this matchup. And then they just kind of ride that out. But you can't do that if you don't have human beings that are okay with that.
Yeah.
And they clearly have a group that has accepted this reality, and guys stay ready. Miller's a great example. Grant Foster's a good example. His minutes were way down after Michigan. He just wasn't as effective. We've highlighted that here on the podcast before. Now he gets into the league, and he's been on a tear. Yeah. Wardley's production in the league is not comparable to the production he was having in non-conference. Now, his impact and how he plays is the same, but his production's way up. Venters is going to go through that now, right? He only played 11 minutes the other night, started out 0-4 from 3. I thought all of them, for the most part, were good looks. Shooters are going to miss. And he played 28 minutes. He might have been 5 for 12. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, everybody has to get used to it, has to be comfortable with this idea, and so far so good.
Yeah.
That's a worry. I think they have to do a good job of that. It's about communication, expectation setting, all those things. But whatever their secret sauce is, they have figured it out with this group. Nobody seems to, you know, have hurt feelings or be moping or causing any issues. I think it's a real testament to the program, but more importantly to these players who clearly are all here because they're all thinking about March.
Yeah. I think it's very motivating for those guys outside of Huff and EK that are pretty much going to play 25, 30 minutes a night. That I know I better practice good. I know I better bring it when I come on the floor. And because when you do that, they're going to find time for you. And if I don't do that, this guy next to me on the bench is going to do it, and he's going to be the guy getting the time that night. I think it's very motivating and keeps them all very engaged into everything. The practices, the first run they get, and the scouting report. I better know, because if I come out and blow the rotation and they drill 2 threes on me, I'm going to go sit next to Mark for a while. and they're going to turn to another body. So, hey, that's going to do it. Sophie is tired of the podcast. I don't know if my microphone's good enough on the phone, but there was a little snoring going on. If you pet her in the right spot, she's going to give you a little snoring. So hopefully that was an added bonus for everybody. Look, thanks for joining us. We appreciate everybody tuning in every Monday. 1 game week this week with Santa Clara. Should be a good one. We'll be back next week to talk about it. Thanks for joining us.